Alright folks, so this is it. Is this gonna be the video that's gonna make me lose a lot of subs? I hope not. Because surprisingly with this sort of conversation going on, not exactly sure where this is going to go, so I'm just gonna jump straight into it. So of course at San Diego Comic-Con, when it comes to the MCU, it's been announced that Robert Downey Jr. is returning, but not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom. So, of course, without a doubt, I mean, first of all, that was pretty shocking. That's like the last thing you would have ever expect to happen, especially for the MCU, for sure. I mean, like, wow. Now, obviously, we have to look back a little bit through the history as to, why for some people this is kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing, because this honestly broke the internet. Like, this was one of those things where, like, you were either on just, there's no middle ground, there's two sides. You were either with the idea or you were against it. People got like crazy, they went bonkers online. But before we get into that, let's say you're watching this video and you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, right? So I'll help you out a little bit, right? Without going super deep into it, because then if I talk about the whole history of the MCU, we'd be here for a while. All right. Now look, man. I'm just trying to think on my head exactly where to even start with this. I mean, in my deep and honest opinion, I think the idea is interesting. I can't wait to actually see where it kind of goes, how it kind of goes full circle. Now, obviously, we have a pretty long time before we get to see his introduction into the MCU, because obviously we have Avengers Doomsday, which comes out, I believe, 2026, and then, of course, we got Secret Wars, which is supposed to be a pretty big deal for the most part, if you're a little bit aware. So let me go back a little bit, right? So obviously, if you're not into superheroes that much, if you don't know exactly what's going on, obviously Robert Downey Jr., he played as Iron Man, back in 2008, I believe. And this was, of course, way before there was an established universe. It was just one of those things where, like, they weren't really too sure if the movie was going to be successful, but then, of course, as we all know, it kind of did. Made a whole bunch of more Marvel movies, and then eventually, they made the this was considered a risky move at the time. But, of course, for 2012, they made the Avengers movie, have all your superheroes from all these different movies finally come together to fight the big bad, right? And, of course, we know that big bad was Loki, So obviously we all know what happened from there. It all kind of spiraled, but obviously with how things were, not everything was in full circle. Marvel didn't had all the rights to the characters. Of course, you still got Fox doing their X-Men universe and all that. Now, obviously, that's all changed, especially with the new, Deadpool Wolverine film that just came out in theaters. Obviously, a lot of that's changed, so it's like, okay, what are the possibilities? What are we going to see next? So, of course, this was the last thing people wanted to see. It's like, whoa, because obviously the character Iron Man himself, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to get into some very, very heavy spoilers if you haven't seen these movies, all right? So, spoiler alert, I guess. Of course, he ends up sacrificing himself at the end of Avengers Endgame. This was, of course, in 2019. And it's, it's shocking, but also unfortunate, especially when we consider that he was actually willing to play the role of Iron Man for as long as possible, only for his character to just literally get killed off. Now, don't get me wrong, he wasn't the only character that went bye-bye. Obviously, there was Captain America, who, he's no longer with us. And now, of course, we got the new Captain America film coming out next year. And, of course, it's not Steve Rogers, it's now the Falcon taking over. And on top of that, he's fighting a Red Hulk, which, come on now. You can't tell me that that's not cool. All right, come on. That's exciting. So the reason why this whole thing is super controversial to begin with, it's because obviously, everybody has always seen Robert as, of course, Iron Man, Tony Stark. So, of course, seeing him now playing as one of the big bads, one of the greatest villains in Marvel history, it's like, whoa. And obviously, pardon my language, it's a bit of a mindfuck for sure. Because it's like, people are so used to him playing as this character. So now seeing that he's playing as this other character. And mind you, this is not a reboot. This is, of course, still the MCU. This is, of course, part of that continuity. So, of course, it has people riled up. You were either on the side that you think that it's pretty cool and it could go somewhere. Others are like, no, this is a terrible idea and all that. So why am I talking about it, right? So this conversation has been going on for like weeks on end. Well, hasn't been that long since they have announced it. I kind of wanted to wait a little bit only because I already knew the reaction was going to be pretty raw. You're already getting people being like, oh, now the MCU is continuing their downward spiral. You know, you get people that exaggerate that a little bit. You got some people saying that this is a very desperate move. So of course, I don't want to give like my full opinions yet until we really talk about that type of stuff, because I honestly, I do have my issues with the reactions, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Now I'm going to say this right now. If you don't like the idea of him returning, playing as Doctor Doom, I think that's completely okay. That's fine. That's of course an opinion that you're justified to have, and nobody's against that. What I do have a problem with, though, is when you get, for some odd reason, and it's not everybody, so please don't bully each other for this, but like for some odd reason, you get like these people being like really, really super picky, and all of a sudden it's like they want to be on their high horse and like explain their reasons why they're right and then you're in the wrong. Basically, you know, bringing up that, you know, all these comic book nerds, they always be whining, you know, and they want things to be super perfect and all that, you know, and then you got some people being like, you know, yeah, I don't like the idea, but, you know, it's stupid of you to think that, you know, it's could work to begin with. And then they give, like, some sort of ridiculous monologue. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin, because half of these comments, they're, like, essay length. Like, for real. Not to get off topic, but I remember when I did, like, my Viper Island rant video. I'm not going to say who it is, obviously. You know, I don't want nobody to get harassed or anything like that. But I remember there was this one guy who wrote so much about, what was going on, basically, I guess, giving his opinions. But, like, the comment was, like, super long. Like, an essay long. It was like, wow. And trying to read through the whole thing, and it's like, like, I kind of get your point, but not exactly, you know, come on now, you know. And then you got other people kind of fighting with him, because obviously there was something that he said that weren't really exactly accurate, but you get the idea. Let me go back to this whole situation, right? I mean, you know, so for the people, you know, I gotta talk about this right now. Now, I don't want to get off topic again, but it's like, I'm so sick and tired of like this whole notion that the MCU is dying and that it's not the same like it used to be, you know, because we all have to remember too that this is not the first time that we've ever seen the superhero genre struggle like this. Did everybody forgot about Batman in the 80s? You know, the 1989 Batman film that was so great. They made a fantastic sequel, and then due to like, I don't know, the violence, I guess, I don't know, and the, you know, like the toy sales weren't all there, you know, I guess because of that, they made like a mediocre, you know, Batman Forever film, and then they made Batman and Robin, and you guys get the idea, you know, and obviously this is not the first time. I think a lot of this also has to do with the DCEU, you know, films, where those were not particularly great. And, you know, listen, this is just my opinion, okay, so I don't want anybody to get upset or anything like that. This is a very, very heavily opinionated video, alright, and I didn't expect it to go this far, but I'm just gonna say it right now, alright. So many of those past DC movies was just not great. Like, I'm just gonna say it, most of them have been box office bombs, so it's not hard to see why James Gunn pretty much rebooted the entire thing. Like, at first I wasn't really too sure about it, but it's like, it's really not hard to see why. Honestly, those movies did it far worse than the MCU did, because I remember when Phase 4 came around, we also had to acknowledge too that, of course, during 2020 there was you know, the virus. You know, I don't know if we're allowed to say it now, you know, the name, but you guys get the idea. Obviously that impacted a lot with movie theaters, so of course streaming was really huge, pumped out a whole bunch of TV shows. But the thing is, there were so many of them and they were so hard to keep up with, not to mention that they were in varying quality. So obviously stuff like that is going to hurt the universe in and of itself. And of course, remember, you also got Sony continuing their weird lineage of Spider-Man but not Spider-Man films. You know, obviously you got the whole, you know, thing where they're trying to make like a universe full of just Spider-Man villains. You know, that's why they made Morbius, they made Venom, and then of course they made Kraven the Hunter, you know, because of that. Madam Web, you would think would be part of that universe, but it's actually not. It's actually part of its own separate thing. So it's like, okay, now you're just making the narrative even worse. And, you know, the reason why I'm mentioning this whole thing is because I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of piles on the notion as to why people think that, bringing Robert Downey back to play as Dr. Doom was a desperate move. And to a certain extent, it kind of does in a way, but I think we're kind of looking at it, I feel like we're all looking at it kind of wrong here, because remember, it's not the character that's returning. It's just so happens to be the same actor but playing as a different character. And we can't act like that this isn't the first time that they've done that. They've actually done that very recent. Now, I am not going to say this. I will pinch it up a little. I'll pinch in a little bit. So I did saw Deadpool Wolverine. Great film, by the way. They did something kind of similar to what I'm talking about using the same actor to play two different characters. I'm not going to say who though, because then that would be me spoiling the movie, and I don't want to do that. And I don't care if all the spoilers are all over the internet by now. I really don't want to do that to the few people that haven't seen it, because I highly suggest you go watch the movie. But you get the idea. Trust me. If you watch it, you'll know what I mean by that notion. But point I'm trying to make is that, you know, and another point of this argument is that, you know, people forget that we did get a couple of good movies throughout the years in the MCU. I mean, you got Spider-Man No Way Home, you know, Wakanda Forever. That's a really great one. Shang-Chi, you know, I know a lot of people said it's a mediocre kung fu movie, but if I'm being honest, at least, you know, even if you look at it like that, at least it's a decent superhero movie. You know, it's something that, you know, it actually tries to be like its own thing, even though it does have cameos from here and there from other Marvel characters like Captain Marvel and and Abomination too. That was cool. I love that they put the comic book accurate Abomination. That's fantastic. Kind of wondering when he'll return, but whatever. That's besides the point. You know. Now, here's the other thing too. We gotta wait to see how this all goes down. I mean, as the phrase goes, let them cook. I guess that's what people really call it. Like, let's wait to actually see when the project, you know, when the movie comes out and we start to learn more details. I don't want to just jump to conclusion that this is going to be a really, really bad idea. You know, I really hate to think of it like that, because again, a lot of people are kind of accusing Marvel of like trying to pull some sort of weird desperate move because they haven't been doing so well lately. But like, they literally had a massive success with Deadpool and Wolverine. So it's like, I don't understand what the notion is. I mean, was it not desperate to bring Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine? You know, and even then, that's not even a valid argument, because he wanted to come back as Wolverine. You know, he even said that he kind of regrets it, because Logan, for a long time, was his official last role as playing as Wolverine, and then there was the conversation as to who would take over. And so far, that hasn't happened yet, because Kevin Feige, this is what they say, he has no plans on replacing Hugh Jackman, so that's great. So, again, all goes full circle. I mean, what else, you know, what else is there, you know? And the fact that this all leads up to, you know, Secret Wars, you know, to kind of, you know, this is the Doctor Doom from Secret Wars, just thought I kind of mentioned that there. Because a lot of people are saying that, okay, maybe this is not like a permanent thing. Maybe this is like an alternate universe type Doctor Doom, maybe a variant. So this might be a temporary thing, because there was a point in the comic books where Iron Man did become Doctor Doom, but they don't think that it's probably not the same thing. Who knows? You know, and especially considering that with the new Fantastic Four movie coming out next year, Galactus is supposed to be the main bad guy, I think. So it's like, okay, where does Doctor Doom come in here? So there's probably a lot of things that we just don't know. So, hey, let's wait. Let's be patient. You know, personally, you know, again, let's be optimistic right here. You know, it could go either way. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, let's wait to see what they do. So until then, that's just sort of my thoughts, you know. And again, I don't believe in the whole notion that the MCU is dying or anything. I think personally what happened is that they, you know, they had it a bit rough for a little bit, but now they're back up and running, and they're actually doing things properly now. In fact, now that we have to wait so long for a new movie now, it's like, damn, we were so used to being spoiled with MCU flicks and shows. But it's good to see a lot of the changes that they're making, especially considering the possible introduction of a brand new X-Men. You know, of course, being rebooted for the MCU. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you like the idea that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Doctor Doom, or do you think it's kind of dumb? Do you think that maybe we should wait a little bit more to see how it kind of goes on? Because, mind you, we're not going to see this for a while. And I wanted to make this video, you know, just to kind of join in on the whole thing. You know, I love the MCU. You know, like I said, I watched Deadpool and Wolverine recently, and it's honestly really great. You know, it's a proper send-off to the Fox, you know, Marvel universe. But at the same time, it's also a introduction to, like, what's to become of both characters. Because it's definitely not the end for sure. No, I guess that's one thing I've spoiled about the new movie. It's that it's definitely not the end. But then again, I think we were all expecting that, because Deadpool and Wolverine was meant to be a, you know, it's a conclusion. It's the finale to like the old X-Men, the universe, whatever. You get the idea. But this is also the introduction of a brand new story with Deadpool, and well, we'll just have to say. And you know, who knows? As for Doctor Doom, well, let's see. If Peter fights Doctor Doom, you think he's gonna notice? He kind of looks like Iron Man. I see that conversation going around too. So, yeah, that's about it. See ya.